Proud to have back on the program here, not nearly often enough, Josephine County Sheriff Gil Gilbertson. Good morning, Gil, or Sheriff, pardon me. How you doing, sir?
Good, Bill. How you doing?
All right, I'm doing fine, there is an interesting battle of, I don't know if you want to call it battle of wills, battle of authority, failure to communicate. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here. This conversation first started with Sheriff Glenn Palmer a few weeks ago that we had him on the program about the extent of federal or U.S. Forest Service law enforcement in various counties. And I talked with him about challenges to authority. You're having your own similar experience in Josephine County, and I guess you've been in communication with Sheriff Palmer, right?
Right. At the last Sheriff's Association meeting, we discussed the issue. Several sheriffs, including myself, have been concerned about the mining issue, the timber issue, the monument issue, federal law enforcement officers out there harassing civilians. So it's just kind of it's leading up to a face-off, I guess. I personally here, I asked a question regarding one of our citizens of the U.S. Forest Service, and I was told that I had to file a Freedom of Information Act with the Forest Service before they would talk to me. In fact, they were told by their higher-ups they were not to discuss any issues with me. Now, it just took me back. The chief law enforcement officer in a county is the sheriff, and that's constitutionally speaking. But to restrict my information, my knowledge of what's going on with my citizens in this community, just on my heels.
Effectively, what the federal government told you is to go pound sand, because we know that a Freedom of Information Act request can take months, if not years, to process.
Absolutely.
So what kind of harassment are you talking, or have your citizens been talking to you about on forest land?
Being just intimidated in a multitude of different ways. And some of those issues just we need to sit and we need to talk about it. And if they refuse to do that, then we'll take another action, another track with this. In fact, I think we now have 6 sheriffs in the state of Oregon, and I believe 4 or 5 in the state of California. I'm going to host fairly soon here. I'm going to host a meeting with all the sheriffs in California, or at least the ones I'm in touch with now, California and Oregon, to figure out what we're going to do with this. I've got a very thick document of all the research I've conducted so far, and there's a lot of issues that I honestly believe that the federal law enforcement officials have overstepped their jurisdiction.
I'm seeing here, received a letter from Hal Anthony. I'm sure you're familiar with who he is.
Right.
Associated with the Southwest Oregon Mining Association. Email he popped me along appears that we have Forest Service officials being told that mining claims issues related to it being discussed, that posting of no trespass notices found around mining claims are to be ignored, and if anyone sees or hears of anyone prospecting or mining while out and about, they are to report back to him or the Forest Service agent, Carla Gallegos, about this. So effectively, doesn't matter if you have a claim, you're not going to be mining out on forest land. Is that effectively what they're saying?
Well, they seem to be closing down everything, and that concerns me as well. The question is what authority do they have to do that? These mining claims, they follow the prescribed rules. There is a proprietary ownership to it.
Sure.
They have the right to tell people not to trespass. It is their claim, and it's dealt in Congress as title to property. So there's a proprietary value to it. There's just a lot of issues that need to be resolved, and it appears they just don't want to talk to us.
Sheriff Gilbertson, is this a recent development within the last year or two, or has this been something which has been building for a number of years through past administrations?
I can't answer for the past administration. I will say that it's becoming more prevalent through my 4 years. I just entered my second term. but I'm hearing more and more of it. I think people are becoming aware that the sheriff is actually paying attention to them.
Sheriff Gil Gilbertson, Josephine County, on the program. Number here, 770-5633. Sheriff, when I spoke with Glenn Palmer, Sheriff Glenn Palmer of Grant County a few weeks ago, he said that the Forest Service was basically telling him that they receive law enforcement authority by nature of having a law enforcement agreement with the county sheriff. And so Sheriff Glenn Palmer said, okay, if that's how you're going to come up with this authority to abuse my citizens, I'm effectively just going to rip up our contract. And he did. He had an undersheriff that, I guess, disagreed with him. He ended up putting him on leave or suspended him or some sort of disciplinary action. And I haven't had a follow-up with him recently, but do you in Josephine County have the same kind of agreement with Forest Service in which you contract and agree to perform law enforcement on forest land?
Yes, we did, and I'm preparing to terminate that as well if I don't get some answers. It's like I say, it's called a cooperative agreement. Cooperation to me means the cooperation goes both ways, and everything's just been peachy keen and fine until I started asking questions, and then I'm told they're not to talk to me, and then I have to file a freedom of information. So I think it's a one-way communication, a one-way cooperation, and I'm not satisfied at all with that. Like I say, once we get some sheriffs together and we start taking a serious look at this and demanding some responses from them, what authority do they have to overshadow the jurisdiction of this county or their own respective counties? I think it needs to be addressed.
How many law enforcement agents from the U.S. Forest Service are in Josephine County right now? Is there a count, or do you even have a way of knowing?
Well, the only ones operating within the Josephine County would be the City of Grants Pass Police. Mm-hmm. You've got U.S. Forest Service and BLM.
I see. Okay. So if you then were to cancel this contract, you would be like Sheriff Palmer saying that means that you, not you, but you as the Forest Service would then no longer have that law enforcement capability.
Well,
they'd have to go through you? Or?
They don't have, I told BLM, I haven't sworn anybody in from U.S. Forest Service. I did swear in as deputies a couple of the fellows from the BLM.
Okay.
But that authority is strictly to help us if we need a backup. And I made it very clear to them that they are not to use the sheriff's authority vested upon them by the swear-in to do anything that they're not allowed to do under their own authority. So I'm not extending any additional jurisdiction, authority, or anything like that to them. It's simply a matter of if I need a backup, they can come and they're under my umbrella at that point.
Fair enough.
The U.S. Forest Service, no, that's not it. And this agreement does not authorize them to conduct law enforcement within the county on anything other than their own federal responsibilities. And that's the question. What is their authority? Where does it come from? That has not been answered.
Okay. So who has actually been doing then as you reported a little earlier in the conversation, who's been reporting and doing the hassling then? The harassment of citizens? Are these rangers under color of authority, or pretending to have authority? Or do we know?
Well, that's my assumption at this point. I won't divulge names, but U.S. Forest Service law enforcement is out there and causing me a lot of grief. I'm constantly having people come in and complain, and they apparently have chosen not to do anything about it.
And they're telling you we're not going to answer questions, go for a Freedom of Information Act, effectively saying, basically usurping your authority or trying to make it sound as if they are superior to your law enforcement authority.
That is correct. In fact, one of them advised me the other day they have supremacy, federal supremacy. That's not true. So, like I say, there's a multitude of issues that we need to address, and I'm looking at uniting the sheriffs that are concerned about this to take the cause forward.
Josephine County Sheriff Gil Gilbertson on the program. Brad, question, comment for Sheriff Gilbertson. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I may have missed it in getting on the phone, but I'm not sure if we're talking about USFS and BLM or who does this apply to? Both of them? When
BLM hasn't caused me any grief. Other than they're closing down roads, and I don't think they have the authority to do that either. So the closure of roads, I think that's an issue we need to deal with BLM. As far as U.S. Forest Service goes, that's the law enforcement officials that have caused me the grief.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for the call there, Brad. All right, so I have a copy of the email or the letter that you sent to Roy Bergstrom with the Wild Rivers Ranger District. Is he the number one guy for the Forest Service in this area then?
Here in Josephine County.
In Josephine County, okay.
Then it goes to Medford, and then it goes on up the ladder.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any response to your inquiry of last week?
No.
All right, so at this point, we're just kind of a hurry up and wait then.
Well, like I say, I plan to go ahead and call a meeting with the sheriffs, and we'll formulate a position and take that forward.
All right.
I don't expect any answers from them. At least that's from the research I've done. Different states have had the same issues. This is nothing new. So this isn't a new issue. I was under the impression it was. Oh no, this Utah, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah. It's happening anywhere there's federal lands.
20 minutes after 8. Let's talk with Don. Hello, Don. You're on with Sheriff Gilbertson. Good morning.
Good morning. Sheriff, I've got a couple of suggestions for you. Number one, deputize all your concealed carry people. Number two, stay very close to your National Guard soldiers.
That's an interesting point of view there, Don. Wanted to comment on that, Sheriff? Is that anything to go with that?
I won't deputize everybody, but the National Guard, we're close. And the problem with just saying everybody that's got a gun out there, go do your thing, there's a liability attached to that I don't even want to address.
And believe me, it's not exactly like Josephine County is flush with so much cash you want to be paying off any potential lawsuits, that's for sure.
That's correct.
You have to be very careful about that. How much does the Forest Service contribute to Josephine County's coffers in exchange for that law enforcement cooperation?
Oh, it's not much. I don't have the figure, but it's we end up with one deputy working 40 hours. I think that's it. So, it doesn't amount to much.
Is it mostly like responding to a call? You got a problem at a campsite, and then someone goes out? Or
they're out there to enforce. In fact, they told us the other day they want us to write a lot more tickets, and we don't operate that way out there. So, they're hurting for money as well, and they've asked us to increase the volume of tickets so that they can show that there's a lot of work to be done so that they can get more money.
It sounds to me so that they can close off some more parts of the forest is what it sounds like. Write more tickets, we have more law breaking. Well, boy, we better shut that down. What do you think, Sheriff?
Well, I can't answer to that.
Yeah, I know. We're just, wondering about this. What happens next then? Are you changing your law enforcement actions here in the forest right now, or are you just waiting to hear back? What's the story?
Well, I'm on a holding pattern right now, but if I don't hear something soon, regardless, I'm still going to host a meeting with the sheriffs, and we're going to address this issue. The other states that this has occurred in, it was a long, drawn-out battle, and I look for probably the same thing to happen here. So we're going to approach this as a group.
Will Jackson County Sheriff Mike Winters be involved in this meeting?
I hope so. I haven't had a chance to talk to Sheriff Winters yet.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that he meets with you, because the problem that I see here, Sheriff, is that if you just roll over, if you just let go of your supreme law enforcement, the chief law enforcement officer in your county, you're not going to get that authority back. It's not going to get given back to you.
Oh, exactly. Back in 1956 and 1958, there was a study done about jurisdiction of federal land within a state, and it's called the Eisenhower Report. Basically, back then in the later 50s, the issue came up. Nobody really cared about the federal lands local law enforcement didn't care to deal with it, and the federal level didn't care to deal with it. So this thing has evolved from that point forward, and it appears to me, and I'm just talking without the solid grounds to do that.
But still, reasonable speculation is what you're doing right now.
Right. What I'm looking at is, I think what they've done federal level is nobody's been concerned, nobody cared, and during that time period they just wrote their own rules, regs, and policies, and that's what they're enforcing without the authority to do so.
All right. Are you going to file that Freedom of Information Act request that the Forest Service basically told you to do, or you holding steady here?
I'm not going to file any Freedom of Information Act. I think that they're obligated to impart that information to me, and like I say, we'll decide our next course of action after the sheriff's meeting.
All right, let's see if we can squeeze a couple more questions in. John in Ashland with Sheriff Gilbertson. Go ahead.
Yes, it seems to me this is coming from the top, and I wonder how you feel about how national elections can have an effect on something local like this.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, it is coming from the top. There's no question about it. Salazar himself is the one that booted what was that tree cutting?
Yeah, the Whopper.
The Whopper.
Mm-hmm.
He booted that one without the authority to do so. So these things are coming from the top level, and they need to be addressed at the top level. And Rome wasn't built in a day. I'm going to have to start at the base here and work my way up, but I certainly plan to do just that.
John, you are on with Sheriff Gil Gilbertson. Good morning.
Yeah, one of the new regulations that the Forest Service just came out with is that on any guided trip down the road, that if they don't set up a toilet within 30 minutes, on the 31st minute, they get a $500 fine. And the one guy from the Forest Service, that's what he's taken on as his, main job function. I mean, when you're going down on a 3 or 4 day river trip, you don't want to think about that. I mean, it's not that the guides wouldn't set up a restroom if they were needed, but this is whether they need them or not. And that's just an example of how they overreach and make it so that it's not pleasurable to be in the woods anymore.
Well, they make it almost impossible financially to do so. I don't know many river guides that could afford to do such a thing, John.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just a portable toilet. It's not a financial issue. It's just another rule and regulation. I mean, it just doesn't ever stop.
Well, I think what they want to do is they just want to kick all human beings out of the forest areas. At least it appears to be that.
But the ones that are left, then Smokey Bear then has his ticket book with him.
But you look at the monument issue they're trying to create. They already own 70% of Josephine County. Now they want to take a huge chunk for this Siskiyou Mountain or Siskiyou project monument. And if they do that, they're going to take another big chunk out of us.
That's why you got to fight that.
It's going to affect 1,400 families. And what they do is they make it so unbearable with new regulations that these people just give up and they move on. Ultimately, they vacate the forest lands.
It's not worth dealing with. Wayne, you're here with Sheriff Gilbertson. Comment, question? Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to make the comment that I use the Upper Applegate area a lot for recreation in the National Forest. And the biggest problem I see out there, I mean, I'm out there probably once a week. And the biggest problem I see out there is litter and vandalism. The litter problem is just absolutely horrendous. I haul back garbage bags of stuff almost every time I go out there. It's in California area.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether they have any authority across the state line, and I don't think the local sheriff probably can go across the state line in the National Forest there. But Siskiyou County, it's such a bad area for access from Siskiyou County. Something needs to be done.
All right, thank you.
Cooperate there, somewhere in there.
All right, Wayne. I don't know. Go ahead, Sheriff.
If I can, Bill, I just talked with Sheriff Lope from Siskiyou County the other day. He came up to visit with me on this issue. And we are going to cross-deputize our deputies so that if they need help there or we need help here, we have that ability. So we're starting to work together. In fact, one of the search and rescue was really what started this. None of us could afford to do it on our own, so 7 counties in Southern Oregon have banded together, and now we're helping each other.
Many hands make light work.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. So we're extending that out to the Northern California sheriffs as well.
Maybe this is the key here, Sheriff, that you get all of the duly elected county sheriffs to band together and as a united force take on this usurpation of authority. That seems to be the way to move forward here.
That's our goal.
Yeah. See if we can squeeze a couple more questions in. David? Hello, David. You're on with Sheriff Gil Gilbertson. Go ahead.
Good morning. It sounds like a very interesting conversation. I'm sorry I got into it a little late. But
well, we'll put it up on podcast. You can download it later.
All right. So my two questions is, one, I live with BLM on two sides and use a BLM road as my access. Is that going to affect me? And the other thing is, I read recently where environmentalists are pushing more controls of access into the forest. What part is that playing?
Thanks, David.
Let me talk about that access real quick. They keep closing off these roads with gates, and then it's still my responsibility, the sheriff's responsibility, to go out and deal with crimes. I can't get into those roads either. Now, what's wrong with this picture? So they're shutting our ability down to do what we need to do by closing these roads. And again, I do not believe that they're closing these legally.
So there are many questions involved. This is multifaceted, not just a matter of the Forest Service saying, we're not going to tell you
absolutely
what's going on. Al, quick question here for Sheriff Gilbertson. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to know now, the Department of Agriculture is over the Forest Service, and the Department of Interior is over BLM. Both of these are administrative bodies. Where do they get the judicial power to police things?
Thank you.
Well, that's the question we're asking them. From everything that I've found in the research that I've done, and albeit it's limited, I cannot find anywhere where Congress gave them the authority to do law enforcement. And if they did somewhere, we're asking for them to provide it, and we're not getting anywhere.
Well, this is a very key question, and I look forward to hearing the answer when you and the other sheriffs end up figuring this out. And stay close, Sheriff, okay?
Will do.
All right. I'm glad you're standing up and standing tall in Josephine County. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.